Hello and welcome to another week of GoodGood Investing. I'm Rachel Grunn.
And I'm Andrea Cwik.
And we're so happy that you joined us again.
Absolutely.
Andrea, what is GoodGood Investing all about? What's our mission?
GoodGood Investing is a company of Rachel and I, and we are all about educating the passive investor. So if you're out there and you're looking for ways to invest in real estate without actively being a part of it, without worrying about termites, toilets, and tenants.
The three T's.
The three T's. Then you're in the right spot because we're here to educate you with passive investing opportunities.
Yep, you heard it here first. And today we are going to talk about something that is very popular, trendy, in vogue in the real estate community right now, and it is called a BRRRR.
BRRRR.
Or as you'd say in Ecuador.
Can you roll those R's?
I love it. Can we just call it BRRRR for now on? It's what it looks like because it's like 4 R's, I think.
Yeah.
Yep, 4 R's. So if you haven't listened to Bigger Pockets or Brandon Turner and you are like, what the heck is a BRRRR except for what Texas did the past 2 weeks, then it stands for buy, rehab, rent, refinance, repeat. It is a rinse and repeat for people who are looking to expand their rental portfolios.
Okay, and so for some folks, if you haven't heard it from Bigger Pockets or Brandon Turner, you might, or if you have, then you might have associated it with single family homes.
Yeah, and that's what I want to quickly describe what it means to BRRRR a single family home for the people that haven't heard about it. And then we're going to blow your minds.
Yes.
Okay. So to BRRRR a single family home, the idea is that you buy a property that's vacant and typically distressed. You perform a rehab. Now, most people, when they perform a rehab, might do a flip, right? And sell it after the end of the rehab. But in the BRRRR method, after you rehab the property, you rent it out instead of selling it, and then you do a refinance. So instead of selling it to get the cash out, you do a cash out refi to get capital back in your pocket. And the idea is that if you plan it correctly, you'll have no capital left in the property, your own capital, and then your tenant will be paying your mortgage off.
Yeah.
And then, go ahead.
I was just going to say, let me break it down just a little bit more. So you buy the property, and then you're buying it usually at a discount, right? Because it's distressed, like Rachel said. You're going to look for it at a discount. That discount should be so much that when you remodel, you are in a state of appreciation for that house, which means that you have put equity into the house more than what you purchased and you remodeled it for. So like, let's use an example. I buy a $70,000 house. I put $10,000 into the remodel, and then and now it's valued or appraised at $125,000. Do you see how there's some equity in that remodeling that you can now use? So then what you do is you go to the bank and you say, look, I have this house worth $125,000. Can you give me a loan for this house? And so usually you can get some cash back when you do some kind of loan against your house. So you would ask for a cash out refi, and so you get a loan, and then they give you some cash out because of it.
Yep, and then the idea is that you can then repeat, right? That's the last R. Take that cash, do it again. But we are not a single family podcast. No. So are we going to tie this into multifamily, Andrea?
Yeah, I love that. So basically, we are breaking these barriers of thinking that BRRRR is only for single family. And I will tell you that on our first flip, we actually did try to do a BRRRR, but it couldn't be done. One, it wasn't because of the equity, but it was because of the timing. So with BRRRR, sometimes you have to wait 6 months.
It's called a seasoning period. And that's an important question to ask your lender.
Right. Before you can actually BRRRR the property.
Correct.
So we didn't get a chance to BRRRR the property because we didn't want to hold on to it for so long. So even that, there's a lot of intricacies.
So what you're
BRRRR.
saying is there's a lot of risk to it.
Because
there's another thing that some investors don't do. They get all excited. They listen to Bigger Pockets. They're like, I'm going to go BRRRR. They don't get pre-approved for a loan before they buy the investment property.
Yeah.
Because you think, oh, well, I'm not going to refinance it, so after I'm done with the rehab, I'll talk to a lender then. What if you can't qualify for the refinance?
Yeah.
What if you can't qualify for whatever $250,000 that the lender requires for you to take the money out of the property? You know, you need to plan. So there's a lot of intricacies, a lot of management.
A lot of intricacies. A lot of faith is put into that appraisal number as well. Yeah. Which, if it's your first time flipping, you have to really know what you're doing. All right. So fast forward. So yes, you can BRRRR with single family. There's a lot of intricacies. There's risk. But it can be done, or it can't be. And then on the multifamily side, we wanted to describe BRRRR because that's actually what we're doing. But nobody ever talks about BRRRRing these multifamily deals. And for us, you know, if you've been listening to us for a while, we are BRRRRing these large multifamily deals. It is not like buying a 4-unit or a 10-unit. We are BRRRRing 100+ apartment units at a time. And we're just going to break it down so it's easy to understand for y'all.
Yep. So we're buying the property, right? That's the B in BRRRR. And we are leveraging debt on that property and with the hopes of refinancing after the rehab. And we're bringing on passive investors as capital partners. So our passive investors are still getting to BRRRR on a huge scale, right? Like economies of scale, right? They're getting to BRRRR on a huge level, which mitigates risk inherently. And then also, they're not having to do any of the management, which, as Andrea said, is a huge part of a BRRRR, is a ton of management. There's a ton of moving parts. And then after we buy it, we do a rehab. This is why we delay the first distributions for 6 to 9 months, because that's when we initiate the rehab. After we've done a majority of the rehab, or at least enough to add value to the property, which might take a little bit longer than in a single family, because we're waiting on leases to expire, tenants to move out. We can't just kick someone out and rehab their unit.
And actually, it's not a good way for us to run a business to be like, all right, we're all these leases have expired, so let's like not put a renter in place so we could do all of this rehab. The way that it works really is that we want to do a rehab kind of like a 1-by-1 situation, or whichever ones are free, because we don't want to displace anyone from their homes, right? So for us, the remodel does take a little bit of a longer time. But one, it's good for the community, which good, right?
Good. That's the first good. Yeah. Good.
And it's good for investors because we're still getting that income coming into us.
Yeah. And there's something that exists in the multifamily space that does not exist in the single family space, and that's Google reviews.
Right, yes.
If you're a flipper or a landlord in the single family space, chances are you don't have a Google page where your tenants can review you. We do. So we are very incentivized to make sure we keep people happy. I mean, not just for that reason. We're incentivized because we're human beings.
Right.
But that will be reflected in our online presence, and that directly impacts the amount of tenants that we have coming in. So we're not in the business of displacing people. But after the rehab, and once we're constantly reevaluating our business plan, when does it make the most sense, interest rate wise and also equity wise, to refinance? When it's ready, we refinance, and then our investors get to take a huge chunk of their original capital and repeat. They get to deploy it into another project so they can have someone else manage their BRRRR all over again.
Yeah, I was just going to step in to say one other thing. When on the single family side, when you remodel, you have to finish that whole remodel before you can put a renter in place. For multifamily, what we do is we have a really good business strategy in play, right? We want to add a dog park. We want to add more security, more lighting. We want to paint the outside, refinish the inside. I mean, we have a plan in place to really get to our apartments in a good remodeled condition. However, you know what? Sometimes we don't even have to do all that, which is a really big difference. We don't have to do the full scale remodel even across the many years that we have it, because sometimes we've reached investor returns and we can sell it for what we thought we could sell it earlier on in our hold period. So I hope that makes sense, because that's a very big difference is we don't have to go through that whole business plan before we sell. We could do some of the remodel, leave some meat on the bone for the next person that's going to buy it, and then we can sell early but still get the profits for our investors.
Yeah. And another huge differentiator between a multifamily BRRRR and a single family BRRRR is how it's valued as well. So just like Andrea said, we don't necessarily have to perform a rehab in order to add value. Sometimes there's mismanagement. Sometimes there's expenses that are running up that, again, management hasn't clocked. Even if we just lower expenses, we're adding value. So there's some special deals that have been mismanaged in some way, and all we have to do is bring in a property management company that knows what they're doing, clean up the expense budget, maybe bill back utilities, little stuff like this that makes a huge difference on our value.
Absolutely.
Which you can't do in single family, right? You're just like stuck with a distressed property that you either have to rehab or hopefully you caught a good deal. And then here's the thing with like a flip is that no matter what market you're in, good or bad, you're catching a bad side of the market. If it's a good time to buy, it's going to be hard for you to sell. If it's a good time to sell, it's going to be difficult for you to find a good property to buy.
Well, and I would also just add, like, even if you're going to hold on to it and not flip it, and you're going to put a renter in, sometimes you don't know if you're going to get the right renter in place on a single family BRRRR, if you're going to have to lower the rent. With multifamily, you know, in that BRRRR model, even if we have to lower one person's lease, right? Mm-hmm. There's so many other leases.
That's how it mitigates the risk. It's the economies of scale. And I'll tell you what else. I'm just like, things are just coming to my mind as we're sitting here talking. But another really good aspect is that in the multifamily space, we're not having to wait for the tenant's lease to end in order to sell the property. In the single family space, I'll tell you from experience, I'm a realtor in DFW. Andrea's an investor. She owns rental properties. She knows. It is so hard to sell an occupied rental property. Mm-hmm. It is so difficult. The tenants don't want to cooperate with showings. Somebody doesn't want to inherit a tenant that they don't know, that they didn't vet. It is so difficult. So what if the market pops off, but you still have 9 months left in your lease with your tenant? You either have to pay them out of the lease or you have to wait 9 months and hope the market's still in a good position to sell. In multifamily, that is not an issue at all. We can actually, the more occupied, the better.
Yeah, and I will say this is that, you know, some people that are near retirement age, they're counting on their either their homes or maybe they had one house that they were renting out for income, right? They are counting on this retirement money. Well, they now have been renting for years. Maybe they haven't been upkeeping with everything around the house. Maybe they haven't even raised rents as much as they should have. But guess what? Now their property taxes are all out of whack.
Yep.
They were counting on this money to help them in retirement.
Yep.
But they've held on to it so long. These property taxes are killing them and they're not even getting cash flow.
Yep.
So these are things to definitely keep in mind. You know, a lot of people say hold on to real estate. Right? Like, I think that's good in a way, but also know how to diversify in real estate.
Yeah.
Because there are good times to sell and there are good times to buy. And there are definitely good times to look into being a passive investor over the active investor.
Right, exactly. We hope this has been enlightening and at least amplified some pain points that maybe you're experiencing in your investing journey. And we just really wanted to come on here and share about our BRRRR business plan because it's so cool.
Yeah.
And I think it's like truly one of the most, at least in my experience, the most lucrative investments that I've been a part of. So any passing thoughts?
Passing thoughts.
I think people should head over to our website.
Yes, absolutely. Okay. Are we going to talk about our new tool? Because we already announced it.
A few weeks ago, we released a podcast episode about it. So we'll briefly talk about it. But if you want to get the in-depth, go back and listen. But yes, mention the highlights.
All right. So on our website, we've revamped the homepage a little bit more. You're going to find a tool called the 3-in-1 Net Worth Assessment Tool. This tool is mind-blowing. I mean, like, I'm telling you, get on there and subscribe and look at the tool. You'll be able to identify if you qualify to be a
Accredited investor, yeah.
Accredited investor or sophisticated investor. A lot of people ask us that, like, how do I know? This tool is going to get you to know. It doesn't mean that you can't invest with us, because you can, but it's good to know if you are or if you aren't, because there's some stipulations.
And sometimes our investments for non-accredited fill up quickly because we only get 35 non-accredited spots. Right. So if you're non-accredited, you can invest with us, but you better do it. You better subscribe quickly to save your spot.
Exactly.
And then also it talks about like where you can find money. It's not just in your liquid in your bank account. There's plenty of places that you have money, and we like to say you may be richer than you think. So that'll discuss that. And then also it has a tool where you can calculate your freedom number and your magic number. If you are interested in learning more about those, head over to the analyzer. We have a little description on there that tells you what those numbers mean for your financial future. Because
they're different. The magic and freedom are different.
They're different, but you need to know both. Yes. And that will be your guiding light on your investing journey. And then also, that will help us in our conversation with you to kind of like have an idea of where you're at and where you want to go. Because not only does this tool measure your current net worth, but also your future net worth if you were able to deploy your capital creatively. So it's super cool. So go check it out. It's totally free. It's on our website, goodgoodinvesting.com. Until next time, Andrea. Don't invest good.
Invest twice as good. Bye.